Hello, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the UNspecial Podcast. We are a space for parents to come be heard, supported, equipped, and inspired. We're not here to present the latest therapies or behavior modifications. We are here for you. We believe in community, and our goal and our hope is for all parents to be in community with one another. Today on the show, we have an excellent human being who has incredible facial hair and is doing big things in the youth and in the special needs community as well. Drake, welcome.
Thanks, Zach. Stoked to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
How are you?
Thank God we're on podcasts.
Yeah.
Because, man, we are not crushing on the visuals at the moment. So this is good.
No, it's been a while. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. I'm out here in Utah, live in Park City, Utah. The snow has just come in and beanie weather is upon us. Ski season, baby.
Are you a skier?
I am a skier. Yeah, I traded my allegiance from snowboarding once I moved here. Actually, once I started dating my wife, Emily, she kind of told me, if you want my dad to pay for you, you need to ski. I said, easy decision. Let's go.
Yeah, that's not hard. So, are you like pretty competent at skiing? Crush it. I mean, I would say I wouldn't doubt you are. I mean, what haven't you crushed in life?
I'm probably 6 out of 10.
Modest.
There's plenty of room to grow.
That's the spirit.
I mean, but living 10 minutes from the largest ski resort in North America does not suck. I'll tell you that. It does not stink.
How often you go up there?
Man, I work so hard. I work all the time. A lot. Yeah, we go a lot. Yeah, it's pretty fun in the world that I work in. You get to do that for your job. And so, yeah, it's an easy excuse to get up on the mountain, both with family, but then also with students and the youths, as you've alluded to. So.
The youth. What do you do up there for work?
Yeah, work. For the last 5 years, I've worked for an organization called Young Life, and I'm an area director in Park City. What Young Life is international ministry. It's the largest kind of non-church ministry in the world. We're in 100 countries, in every state here in the U.S., and I get to introduce kids to Jesus and help them grow in their faith. That's the mission of Young Life. But what I do is I oversee 3 different ministries here in our town. A high school group, which is called Young Life. That's 9th through 12th grade. Middle school group, Wildlife, which is 6th through 8th grade students, so middle schoolers. And then we have a Capernaum ministry, which is 13 to 22-year-olds with any sort of disabilities, with or without. And so it's a real treat and pleasure. I oversee a handful of volunteers, other adults, and 4 staff people who the goal is to build relationships with students, become friends, to be an extension of a family, to support a kid. And in turn, through relationship and friendship, get to share who Jesus is with them through our actions and through words, through really fun events throughout the week, to just one-on-one time, skiing, coffees, sporting events, being on campus and being around young people. So we could earn the right to share what we believe is true and the best thing in the world, which is a relationship with God. And regardless of the response, it's our job to be their friends for forever. And so over 5 years now, I have plenty of college students that I interact with and follow up with. And with Thanksgiving coming up, and they'll come home and we'll cook pies together with traditions in Park City, and we'll be able to spend some time on the mountain, off the mountain, all the things.
That's pretty awesome. Talk to me about Capernaum. So it's your special needs ministry. Yeah. Are they anybody can come?
Yeah, so we have an age bracket, how it works in Young Life kind of nationally, 13 to 22-year-olds. It's all different types of abilities. So if there's a there's a high schooler who's like, man, I would much rather spend my time in the Capernaum space. Man, we set them up and we invite them in. We have high schoolers across the mission through the different ministries that we have that are student leaders. We call the student leaders for middle school and high school student leaders, where they're spending time with middle schoolers and building friendships with them and helping put on events and sharing the gospel with kids through friendship and relationships and laughter. And then we have Capernaum Buddies, where it's high schoolers that come alongside their classmates, their peers, and they invite them into friend groups and they are with them at club. And here in town, we have an integrated club. So 3 times a month, we do high school club on Monday nights, where we invite our Capernaum students into that. And so it's a fully integrated club. We camp with our Capernaum students. They go to summer camps with us, 5 nights away camps, which is a treat to do. It's hilarious and fun. But then we do once a month, we do a Capernaum specific club, where we do everything and invest everything into our students with special needs. And so, yeah, it's a treat. It's fun. And Young Life is for all types of students. And so we've really taken that here and have done our best to see how does this work well, knowing that, man, these kids are in school with everybody else. And so let's design an experience for them that allows them to see that and feel that, and people who love them. So
That's amazing. And that's a big part of the podcast we got going here, is to kind of take away some of those labels put on special needs and just really introduce them to life and buddies and treat them the same as everyone else. So that's pretty amazing to hear you're doing that right now. How do you think, how do the other students take them in? Like,
well, it's really funny. The only conflict, honestly, is that our Capernaum students seem to always win the raffle, and people start chanting, "It is rigged! It is rigged!" And it's so funny, and it's awesome, because it's just like, it's the best in the world. Our students are great. Of course, when you get into spaces that are different, right? Students react in different ways, but for the most part, only is bringing life and life to the full right in front of kids. We believe, and this is my worldview, my take, that Jesus came to give life and life to the full, and a relationship with him is opposite oftentimes of how the world works. And when you experience some things that may not be the social norm, like playing a game or getting pied in the face by one of our Down syndrome students, you get to experience life in a different way that you didn't even know was better. And so oftentimes it's tons of high fives. All of our Capernaum students are the rock stars of club. It's pretty special. It's pretty.
what do you see on the parent side of things?
Man, well, it's hard for me because caveat, I don't have kids with special needs or any sort of learning disabilities to this point that we recognize with a 6 and 3-year-old. And so it's hard for me to be like, what are they experiencing? But at the same time, we get to experience parents craving and desiring that their students belong. And we get to provide a space for them. So we get to see parents in really neat spaces, in really grateful spaces, but it's also a caveat of like, isn't that how it should be, type of thing, with a lot of how we are equipped as people who believe in God and his plan and purpose for individuals. And we see that parents, though, are tired. We see that parents are in need of respite, where we see parents that are tackling big issues that weren't what they designed when they started thinking about having kids, or adopting and inviting kids in, fostering kids and things like that. We've seen an array of examples of guardians and parents with their students over the last couple of years. But yeah, we see parents desiring for their students to be understood and to belong to something. And sometimes that's not as easy in a lot of different spaces of how things are set up, right? So
Right. Well, there's always a certain element of things need to be modified in such a way so that they can be in to the fullest. I mean, how many students in Young Life?
I mean, we know probably around 700 students right now in our town, and 20 of those are active in our Capernaum group, where, we have a saying in Young Life is you go for the furthest out. So in all scenarios, who's the furthest out? And when we plan and we look at how we put on an event, we look to the furthest out, and oftentimes that falls into a kid who would never ever come to church. What would they see and experience where they'd be like, that's lame, or what the heck are they talking about? And so we cater our language and our hospitality and how we go about our business to the furthest kid out. And then when you invite in a Capernaum group, or you invite in a student who's like, hey, I want to come experience this, and maybe I have a neurodiversity of some type, we then think that through. So we cater our games, we cater our events, our functions, the things that we do around the furthest out. And what's awesome is when you hit the furthest out, then you get every single kid in between. Like, you're allowed to take things and shift things that cater to where somebody's coming from. Right? In all relationships, I think what we want, and it's not just events, but I think in any relationship is, hey, when you're pursuing somebody to be a friend or in business or wherever you're at, and you know that person is thinking about you in their decision-making process, and they want you to benefit it, life is just better with that person. And so when we get to display that, or we get to put that in front of any type of kid, you see the benefits. You see you thought about me in this. And sometimes it's like, man, this game is really going to crush. And this is the momentum piece of a semester or something or an event or something that goes on. And it's like, man, maybe that might not fit this type of student. Hey, maybe we put that to the side then. And we wait for the week that maybe like, hey, we just have our Capernaum students meeting. And maybe we introduce that there, or maybe we invite them in a different way. We give them ownership over passing out parts of the game, reffing the games, handing out raffle tickets, being involved on programmatic things, whether that's like dressing up as a silly character, whether it's Marvel or a cowboy or something like that. And you're inviting them in. So then they're like, oh, this is my thing. This is my thing, along with it being everybody's thing. It's pretty great.
Yeah, no, that sounds amazing. What do you see? I think the divorce rate for parents that have special needs is somewhere around like 85%, something crazy. Do you see a lot of that in Park City, or what do you see the interaction with that aspect? Because I know when I was teaching, I can only count like a handful of dads that I met, and it seems like the easy thing to do is just to bail. And it was typically the mom always taking care of the kid. Actually, a story comes to mind, probably like one of the most powerful moments. I had this student, he was a big boy, like 6'4", 250, and he was very violent. He typically had 3-on-1, and he showed up to school one day and he wasn't having it. And he ended up punching out the window in the car. And then the ambulance, cops, everyone showed up. And he was still raging. And his dad got in the back seat with him and just sat with him. And then he calmed down. But I remember thinking, like, how that is like a display of a father loving his child, you're literally going in to a very dangerous situation. What do you think it is for that? I mean, we're both married. It's not a walk in the park. And then you throw in more challenges. What are your thoughts?
Interesting enough, in my experience, I feel like dads here that I've experienced have been like super involved. In Young Life, and just speaking generally in Young Life, we are serving people who probably would never go to church, who don't have the same moral standings and grounds as us, which is the same here. We have a ton of families in our Capernaum organization and side of things and ministry. And then across the board that, church is not the thing that they're subscribing to. In that, though, you've seen those families displaying what I would picture God being like, very open-handed, waiting for a son to return, sitting in the void of the chaos that takes place within a family unit. But I do think that there are challenges and there are things that are not anticipated. when you have a student, right? That has their unique circumstances and the things that come on with all neurodiversity and all the different scales and levels and depths of it. Of course, there's going to be conflict. We live in a world of conflict. Since the beginning of time, something went wrong, and through that, things come about. And so, yeah, the thing that we have learned the most is adapting our interactions with our Capernaum students, our Capernaum friends, adapting and shifting those things to then serve the family as well. And so we pay attention to respite. And what does that look like for a family with a neurodiverse student in it? And so we extend time so parents could actually not just have a 1 hour thing, which we normally keep everything to an hour. Hey, we're going to extend it for 2 hours. So mom could go to TJ Maxx, mom and dad could go and grab dinner, and it's on the schedule and the calendar's out way early so we could encourage them to say, hey, go and take this time and let's extend that path. So when we do an integrated club in our high school, for an hour before we meet at a restaurant or we meet at a joint to go in and eat for an extra hour. And then we shuttle them over to the club, giving them 2 hours so they actually can take a breath and they can wander world market, because we have like 2 stores. We have 2 stores here. So they could actually go and do some of those things. And so we're always thinking, how much does respite and quiet and peace mean in those families? They mean more sometimes. And so can we cater to that in whatever way we can?
Yeah, that's cool. So it's bigger than just, you have the whole picture in mind, the whole family in mind.
Yeah. And oftentimes, I've been in this now for 5 years and it's turning more and more to an adult driven job for me.
Yeah. So then do you play a lot of role as counselor to parents, or are parents in any kind of life group or anything?
That's the next phase we've been kind of really trying to pay attention to is, we live in a small town. And we are lucky that in Park City, so many people choose to live here, and the people and the families and the resources that people have here in our town are incredible for the neurodiverse community, and they're improving, and there's amazing things that are being worked on and being built out by parents for families. Like I got to sit on a group with 7 to 10 different organizations that serve the neurodiverse community, and we get together and we're creating spaces for parents and seeing, okay, where are we missing and what age groups do we need to pay more attention to? Our school district here is pretty wonderful, where we have a learning center like extended out towards when they're 22, but then there's that bridge off. And so there's organizations working on that bridge. And what does that look like for workforce employment and things like that? But the one gap that I see in our town is where our parents then going through the phases and through the stages. They'll get all the information, right? Like this podcast is, you like say, this is not where you're going to get the latest and greatest, because they get told that so much
all day.
And they have those resources right in front of them. It's all pretty and it's on a PDF, and so you go. Mm-hmm. Then it's okay. Then how do you then nurture the unit and the family? And that's a really special part of young life, is when you create belonging for a kid, you change generations, you change families in that. And so we get to them. So I know parents pretty intimate in our Capernaum space, because you're making sure that their kid's safe and you are learning the details and understanding the things. And so counselor, no. Friend, yeah, I hope so. I hope that if they listen to it, they're like, yeah, Jake's pretty cool. We like him,
We'll find out in the comments.
Yeah, seriously.
Curious of your thoughts in Exodus chapter 4, when God calls Moses to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. And then they have a very interesting dialogue where Moses tells God he's not the guy fit for the job because he's got a stutter. And then God replies to him and he says, "Who has made man's mouth? Who makes the mute, the deaf, the seeing, or the blind? Haven't I the Lord?" What's your take on that? I know it's probably most definitely a very controversial verse, and depending on which, not to get too theological, but you can Yeah. What do you think?
Well, I'll answer it based on me having an understanding of who God is.
Yeah.
And I don't want to assume that people who listen to this are on the same field as me, right? But so I was looking at that verse and looking at, man, you just think about the individuals that we interact with, and you're like, that's interesting. Why would God create somebody to have an uphill scenario, whether that's a parent, whether that's a guardian, whether that's a household or an individual? Like, what is that? So I'll say this. I think it's kind of 2-3 parts. That does God know that a kid, a child, a baby is going to come out with some alteration to the genome chromosome dynamic? I don't know the science words.
The science, yeah.
The science. Does God know? Yes, God knows every single thing that is taking place within the womb. And does God make it happen? I don't know. I don't know the answer. But I do know that if God knows and sees everything that's going on in the womb, that he permits it to happen. And I'm not saying that God, because we are talking about God here. Like, I believe that God is the dude who made it all and will impose when and how. And we see that through the history of mankind, the greatest history book ever. Hasn't been proven wrong yet, the Bible. We see that he has a plan, and the Lord is strategic. And there are things that take place to us that go, like, what is that? That is not how Drake, would write that up. Thank goodness, because I'm not God. That's a thing that, like, I've had to just say, like, I submit to that. There are things that take place that I can't control. But if he knows everything, because it says, I knew you before you were born, I stitched you together. I know that God then permits certain things to take place. And if that is the result of a baby coming out with a neurodiversity, then God has a plan and a ridiculous intentional purpose for that individual. And that right there, I then look and I flash forward, right? If he has a plan and literally permitted it to happen, knew that is the circumstance that a family or an individual or a child will then walk into. He then has to then be able to go, there is something there that the world will see, that this individual and this person is the most intentional thing that I could do. And that, as I think about our kids and I think about the faces, the names, the circumstances of the kids that I get to call friends, that literally are like my people. Did God make it that way? Not sure. But he permitted it. He says, you are mine. You are part of me. You're an image of me. And you have something to contribute that is so beyond what someone else may perceive. And that is something I think is a lifelong process of understanding in so many different circumstances. But I think it fits really well in this space.
Yeah, no, that's thanks for answering. That was great.
Yeah, I know. I may get yelled at or something.
But then it just goes back to, like, we never know what he's doing. We can't know because we can't comprehend it. And so I know every special needs person I've ever come in contact with, they just bless everybody they're around with their personality. Even they'll just come up to you, give you a hug. And I don't even know anybody who hasn't, like, actually taken the time to invest in a relationship with one of them, that they're just not super stoked on it. And we don't know what God's doing with that.
No, we don't. But I do know that God's love is for all people. And that is all, like, period. And that is something that should be at the forefront of people's minds. Is he about you? Is it about you? No, like,
No.
but it's for you. But it's for you. And that comes with, a whole other conversation. But no,
It,
yeah, I just know that God has intense, insane plans for people of all abilities. And it just takes a little bit of intentionality to see what.
yeah, totally. You got any funny stories? Funny stories? What
Oh,
comes
I
to
mean,
mind?
the
I mean, like every day.
it's the countless, some kid, lets out, toot or something in the middle of like a quiet talk, and you're like looking around and you're like, my bad, y'all. You're just wearing it, the kid's just like, yeah, it was him, and you're like, afterwards, you're like, dude, you totally set me up there. It's like, dude, I'll sit in next to that girl, You're like, I get it. I get it. But yeah, I mean, gosh, we get to do camping with our Capernaum friends. You get into the funniest conversations and you get into the deepest conversations. But I'm trying to think of a specific one. We do raffles in Young Life. That is actually not what we do in the state of Utah. We do chance to wins. That's gambling in our state. But we do chance to win opportunity drawings in Utah at our clubs. And we had one of our students won a goldfish. Won a goldfish.
A real goldfish?
Yeah, a beta fish. And kept that fish alive for like 2 years. And
That's impressive.
yeah, it was a staple in a big fundraiser we did at one point. We like had his mom surprise him with the fish under the desk. He didn't know it was coming. And he was like, yeah, it's like, tell me about like, what's your favorite part of clubs? Love raffles. It's like, I won this fish. His name's Delta. I'm like, oh, that's an interesting name. He's like, yeah, airplanes are sweet. And I was like, wait, you mean this fish? And he just lost his mind. He just like put it on the desk and he just lost his mind. It's like, that's my fish. That's my fish. And so, yeah, we've had Capernaum students who are just live life to the full. That like, hey, do you want to ride a bike at camp? And they're like, yeah. And they have no idea how to ride the bike. They've never, and it's just like, and so you're teaching the kid how to ride the bike, and you're just like, is this going to be like the worst ever? Or, and so you're just sprinting alongside them. We had a leader, Devin, who just sprinting alongside this girl who's just riding a bike for the first time and literally steering and holding it and just up hills, down hills, and just and hollering. And, you say a funny line and in a talk when you're sharing about Jesus or whatever, and you just have that Capernaum student who's just, I have something to say and I got to get it out. And it's just like, everybody's just like looks and laughs and it's like, me too. Yeah, I love cats too. He's like, yeah, it's like great. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. And then you have the classics, the hey, so and so took off running again. Who's up? Who's who doesn't have Birkenstocks on? Who's gonna catch him?
That's what I love about them. They just do what they want to do.
Yeah.
And like, if we could just get out of our own way and just live like they do. I mean, they're such a good example of getting past the mental block. Just go for it.
Yeah.
And then,
and what's fun is just, you have kids that react in certain ways, right? And you want to not correct all the time. You want to just observe and, hey, based on where they're at and meeting them where they're at and then guiding and saying, hey, what if we thought about this? Or, hey, like, let's not touch there. Like, we don't need to have, let me train you and let's walk through the proper amount of time to give a hug. Like, and you're just like, hey, let's do it together. And then you do it. And one, two, perfect. All right, now give me some knuckles, and then it's like, it's that kind of stuff. But, in the Bible, it says, the word became flesh and moved to the neighborhood. And it's kind of the philosophy of Young Life is Jesus was sent down from God so humans could see and experience a representation of an invisible God, like the physical form. And so he sent Jesus and he met them in the neighborhood. He met them exactly where they're at. And if you take that mentality into this community of, I'm going to meet you where you're at, and that may be just pure chaos one day, and you're not well, and you're tired, and you've been up, and you had a bad night's sleep, but man, mom needed a drop off, and all right, we're going to take it. and we're going to meet you where you're at. And we're going to have a leader that's going to be with them in this space and in this context. And then there's times where it's like, oh, they don't want to be around me. They literally want to go and work the room. It's like, and they'll tell you, I don't need you. And you're like, all right, I'll be right here, And so you're just constantly meeting kids where they're at. And that comes in just a different, wider variety when it comes to students with neurodiversities or disabilities, or however you want to claim it. It's a joy, and it's a gift, and it's a treat to do that, because all I know, and this is what I say to Capernaum leaders or people who want to be Capernaum leaders or are interested in it, is here's the deal. You think you're going to come and serve, and you're literally just going to be served by these kids. And you are going to feel like you want to come and make impact. These kids will change your life. It is the best thing you could ever do, because it just puts life into a very simple interaction. And it's most of the time, it is so sweet, like so sweet to be able to do that.
Yeah, no, that's pretty epic. I mean, you kind of hit on this a little bit, but as we close it down, what would you want every parent to know?
Well, I mean, there's probably two things. I feel like, hey, I think the first thing, the thing I care most about, which I'll lose some credibility here, but I believe that God wants to know you. I think he has a specific plan and design for who you are. And the God that I know, with the example of Jesus, is a God that goes out of his way to know the depths of who you are, and the pains and the struggles and the chaos of your life. And you have a chance to walk into that. And sometimes that's not a straight line. And sometimes Christians and people will make you not. And so I'd probably say, hey, sorry for that. But there's a God that deeply cares for you. And the second thing would be, man, it's hard because it feels so watered down, maybe because I don't know. But I would say this: a lot of people don't know. A lot of people don't know about what you've experienced and are experiencing and will continue experiencing. And I just want to tell you that your kids, the students, the family unit that you have is a gift. It's a gift to people like me, and to so many people around your student. And you also have all the right in the world to complain. Like, you have the right to voice frustrations, and you, that's your right. And because, man, we just can't understand all the things and the pressures and the thoughts that y'all probably have on a regular basis. And so, yeah, I love you. I don't know you, but I'll come to Park City and give you a hug.
No, that's
a second hug. A
2-second hug. Go give somebody a 2-second hug today. That's what we can all do. Well, that was a powerful conversation. Super pumped that you're able to come on. Yeah, there's going to be more of this. Our goal, our hope is for every parent, like we said, to be in community, and for you to know that you are equipped, you have what it takes. I know it may sound and feel like it's not true, but we believe in you. We're here for you. And again, thank you, Drake, for being on the show.
Love you, bro.
Much love.